It's here. It's draft day. Not the terrible Kevin Costner movie, but a day that we've been waiting for months. Is it going to go the way we think? Will there be major surprises or somewhere in between? We're going to discuss it right now.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It's draft day. A little bit of a different look here on Locked On NFL Thursday. Alex Clancy and my dear friend Tony Wiggins from Locked On Jaguars is going to bring you through to everything you need to hear and know going into draft night tonight. What are the most pivotal spots that we're going to be looking at? Most of them are going to be in the top 5. A couple non-quarterback trade-up possibilities, and Wiggs already got his bold prediction ready to roll. I have mine as well. For the third segment, thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I've got a competitive side, and I'm a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So you join your friends and download Monopoly Go for free on the app and on the App Store and Google Play. Tony, listen. We've been talking every which way about this draft with our respective teams. Now we get to come together and have this cauldron of excitement and what the hell is going to happen. Right. What are your thoughts before we dive into, pivotal spots and bold predictions, all that stuff? What's your thought going into this draft? Is this going to be one of the craziest ones we've ever seen?
I do believe so. I think there are a few spots where it's going to kind of take some turns, and it has something to do with the teams that are in those spots, and the way the board is going to fall. I think it's going to be a whole lot of surprises. Nobody gets all of this stuff right. I tell people this all the time. When you look at the draft and the way that we do this for content and the excitement, go back and look at past drafts. Most of us are wrong about a whole bunch of people that turned out to not be very good. A lot of teams that are bad organizations probably drafted guys and ruined them. And then we just didn't get it right anyway, because whoever we thought these teams were going to take, they ended up taking somebody else. So they do a real good job of making sure that they don't give up the pick and give up too much information. And we're always surprised on draft night. So it always shocks me when folks want to argue so much about their opinions pre-draft, because we're always wrong anyway, man. So why can't we give each other the benefit of the doubt and say, you know what, that sounds crazy, but that just might happen, because crazy always happens on draft night.
Yeah, man. And it's crazy. Like, you look at the 2021 draft with all of the quarterbacks that were traded. I wasn't expecting to talk about this, but when Tony and I get together, things happen. So you look at 2021, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones. All in the top 15, and all are on different teams now. How can you be looking at the draft board, if you're Washington, if you're New England, if you're the Giants, maybe, if you're Minnesota looking to trade all the way up, and be like, how is that not potentially us giving up all of this draft capital for a quarterback that may not work out? Like, I know it's an inexact science, Wick, but it seems so polarizing at this point. Either a quarterback's going to hit or he won't, and there's no real in between.
A lot of times, whether or not the quarterback hits on is not him. It's the situation those people bring him into, and that's the thing. They're not going to fix themselves. It's like asking people to fire themselves. They're just not going to do it. So, one of the things that can be said, if you look back at that list, you'll go, okay, Zach Wilson, he's no longer with the Jets. They got Aaron Rodgers. They probably would have made the playoffs last year, and they think they're going to make it this year if he comes back. So those folks ain't thinking about nothing. Trey Lance, yeah, they led in the Super Bowl in the fourth quarter. They ain't tripping on that either. You know what I'm saying? They were able to overcome that real easily. Justin Fields, you think they're crying today? They ain't worried about that either. The Josh Rosen days, and your team that you cover every day started this. Steve Keim made it so that it is not the worst thing in the world to miss on a quarterback anymore, because you can fix it in 2 years. And it used to be real, real bad when you had to give the Sam Bradfords of the world $50 and $60 million, and it wasn't a headache that people could just get rid of by wishing it away. Now it's not the same. You can pick a quarterback, Brandon Whedon. That's all right. We'll pick a quarterback, and 2 years later we won't like it. We'll get another one. That's the way of the world these days. So thanks to Arizona, it's gotten a little bit easier for those teams to go ahead and swing for the fences.
So the high wire act that's going to be Minnesota, maybe Denver. I mean, outside chance of the Raiders moving up and bringing back Antonio Pierce and Jayden Daniels together. What are the most pivotal spots in the draft? Like, give me two spots that you think hold the most weight as we roll into tonight with the first round of the 2024 draft.
Well, the easiest thing is to say 3, but at least it's their pick, and they do need they can take the best player on the board, which is probably Marvin Harrison, or they could take a guy in a position of need, or the Patriots actually, and this is one of those things that might be a surprise. The Patriots are a team that changed coaches, changed GMs, and there's a quote unquote franchise left tackle sitting right there, and they need one. I mean, what's to stop the Patriots at 3 from saying, well, just give me Joe Alt, we'll play it safe? Because that seems to be what teams do. There's nothing when you look at him as a prospect, he checks out. Nobody's gonna get mad at him. So I say it starts with 3, and then if that happens or some sort of surprise at 3 happens, now we go right to 4 to Arizona, and that's the hot spot for everybody. But Arizona and the Chargers can sit there and go, well, it's 2 quarterbacks left. Somebody want a quarterback, they come up here. You ain't got to give me all that stuff Arizona's asking you for. So you would think that Monty Ossenfort, his war chest would probably be leveraged a little bit by Harbaugh if Harbaugh wants to move out of there. So there's a lot of things. And if Alt goes at 3, just imagine now you got Tennessee sitting there that wants to probably come up a little bit and get one of those 2 or 3 receivers. So there's a lot that can start at number 4. But then it could also go to number 5. A weird spot for me is number 8, because everybody keeps talking about 9 because they're thinking that Chicago is going to do. We don't know what Atlanta's going to do. Mm-hmm. Atlanta could take an edge rusher. They could take a corner. They could take a receiver. Atlanta could do just about anything and make it make sense. Well, with the exception of taking a running back, but still, I think they're going to be they're another team that's going to be in a position to do something, and everybody's going to start scratching their head. So that's where I think it gets really, really funny and weird. Right there starting at 3, but Atlanta can make it shaky and funny too.
Yeah, it's interesting. Tony Wiggins, Locked on Jaguars, Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. A new duo just for today, Locked on NFL Thursday. Tyler is swapping with Tony, who you can see him tomorrow with David Harrison. It's race to not draft the first defensive player, it seems. So if Atlanta doesn't need to get any better on offense, unless they want to draft an interior offensive lineman at 8, which you can definitely get with the trade back. If I'm them, I'm looking to trade back. I mean, you can get premium defensive players between 10 and 15, and you're right. But I think, so there's 2. Arizona, I think they're just going to stick with Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think 3 first-round picks to move back is necessarily more valuable at this point, because they don't need to get younger after this year. And that's kind of where I was at this. I'm like, trade back. And then as of, I don't know, a week ago, I was like, nope, I think MHJ is the right choice. They have 5 other picks in the top 100. They have all their picks next year and all the money necessary to spend. Washington, for me, is the interesting one, because if Drake Maye is available at 3, the world is going to end. Like, if they choose Jayden Daniels at 2 and Drake Maye, who was a 1A for a long time to Caleb Williams, it's like Jayden Daniels won the Heisman because nobody else took it. And then his stock has continued to rise. If Drake Maye is there at 3, I don't see New England passing on him. I don't see Minnesota not offering up all of the picks they can to move up and get him, even though the J.J. McCarthy was the guy, but now kind of isn't. Like, what Washington does it too, especially for the quarterback market, it's pivotal. Because, I mean, again, if they pass on Drake Maye, 3, there will be fireworks. And if they're not at 3, there will be at 4, which may make me eat my words to Marvin Harrison Jr. and the Cardinals. Alex Clancy, Tony Wiggins, Locked on NFL Thursday. We talk about trade-ups with quarterbacks. There are projections that there will be upwards of 10 trades in the first round alone. What non-quarterback positions / players could be ones that teams would trade up for? We'll discuss it next as we're all on here. Locked on NFL Thursday. Tony Wiggins, Alex Clancy. We'll be right back. This episode of Locked on NFL Thursday is brought to you by Monopoly Go. There's no surprise here for the Locked on Cardinals everydayers. Tony, my dear friend, knows this. I've been told I'm a competitive person. Yeah, I think that the smile on his face would lend people to think that he agrees. Okay, well, I have a competitive side. Yes, we all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly when you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part, always messing with your friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like the classic Monopoly, but now I can also heist their vaults of riches for myself. And the leaderboard shows me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just the competitive side that loves it for me. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. And this episode of Locked on NFL Thursday is also brought to you by Bink FanDuel. Here's the thing. I'm going to read the copy in a second. This draft is going to be bonkers. The over-under of draft position that players are going to be drafted is going to be nuts. There's no way that anybody really knows. Like, it's crazy every year, but the gap with mock drafts of where certain players are going, I've never seen anything like it. And it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL also. Plus, baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel's your place to bet on every game right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on the app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. So what are you waiting for, man? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Before we get into non-quarterback trade-up targets, Tony Wiggins from Locked on Jaguars has something to tell you.
If you are watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day, if you have to turn down the volume with all the yelling, screaming, and shouting, make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
At Shop Talking Wig on Twitter for Tony, at Clancy's Corner _ for me, because my damn Twitter account got locked out. And I'm starting from scratch, baby. It only took me, 10 years to cultivate those relationships. But oh well, we're starting fresh. I want to start at 8 because that seems like a position that teams could trade up to, not for a quarterback. But Tony, when you're looking at guys, so say Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison go early, okay, and say that New England takes a quarterback, whoever drafts at 3 takes a quarterback, whoever drafts at 5 takes a quarterback. So you've got Rome Odunze, all the defensive players, all the offensive linemen, not named Joe Alt. Like, what's a top name off the top of your head that teams would trade up to get? Say they were in the early teens or even late teens to jump back into the top 10.
All right, so I had to kind of break it down by position first. What is scarce? And then that didn't work. So I looked at it and decided that I would go, okay, so when is the last of a group going to be there? Like the third receiver of that first group, right? But I'm thinking that this draft is so deep at wide receiver that teams probably won't see a lot of value in moving up for that either. Somebody has to love. I mean, when I say love, a player that's going to be on the board and no one has picked at that spot yet. I don't think when you get right there at the back half of the top 10 that any defensive tackles are going to be gone. I've heard all of this Byron Murphy chatter. I'm not a big Byron Murphy guy, just like I'm not a big Drake Maye guy, but it doesn't mean they're not going to be good because I've been wrong before. I could see a team saying, I'm in love with Byron Murphy and I got to go get him. Now, I don't believe in trading up for dudes that's 6'1", 297 pounds that play a position where the guys are usually bigger than that. Right. But when I think about that, I don't want to say Brock Bowers, even though there's a big gap between him and tight end too. And that's just because of the positional value of tight end. Unless somebody sees him differently than a normal tight end, which he is different from a normal tight end, I can't imagine that. So here's where I'm going to go. Quinyon Mitchell, because to me, he is clearly the best corner in the draft. That's one. And Troy Fautanu, because of his versatility and maybe for some of these teams, scheme specific wise, especially if you're playing some zone, he may be a dude that if a team leads with versatility and leads with athleticism more so than just pure brute strength and power, then Fautanu may be the dude that teams go, you know what, we just got to have him. The Clamps, we got to remember, teams fall in love with players, not positions.
Yeah.
You know, they may have a need spot, but then when they start getting to the point of putting their careers on the line and who they stand on the table for and who they trust to come to work at 5 o'clock in the morning when they don't have to be there until 6, they're going to go with a person, not a position. And that's why some of those guys, I think, have certain traits. And I believe those are the things that people will trade up for.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I mean, the pass rush group in the top 20 isn't as deep as it normally is. I mean, you've got Dallas Turner, you've got Jared Verse are the two hot button guys, one going to the top 10, one going to the top 20, Chop Robinson following it between 20 and 30. I think for me, the trade ups are going to be from early second round into mid first round, 20 to 30, or 25 up to 15. I think there's the corners. You mentioned Quinyon Mitchell. I think Cooper DeJean is going to be a huge guy that teams might want to trade up for. That's a Green Bay target. I think everybody's saying perfect fit in Green Bay if he gets to 25. Like the corners in this draft, we don't know where Nate Wiggins is going to go. We don't know where Kool-Aid McKinstry is going to go. That's kind of the biggest question mark. I mean, I know that you've been on the ground a lot more than I have. Like, do you see teams valuing corners? And I know what you just said about people and not positions necessarily, but if you can get both and you trade up, you give up a third round pick, you trade up, you give a future third, something like that. I'm centralizing mainly around the corner position. There's like 3 or 4 guys in the first round.
It comes down to personal preference with those cats, and like I said, it just mainly depends on who's in there in those rooms standing on the table begging the team to take somebody. Like if a dude just exudes your personality and he has your makeup, and you know there are some teams that do this very well, like the Baltimore Ravens, the Chiefs. They pick guys who they're real good at picking dudes that fit their entire culture and what it is that they like to do. So if there's just a guy you just have to have, I don't know if the physical aspect is going to be what separates them. And with the corner position, the only thing I'll tell you is there is no Sauce Gardner in this draft. There'll be people that will be very, very successful and be really, really good players. But there isn't this quote unquote can't miss dude that you got to have, the Derek Stingley of the world. They're just not there. But what there are a bunch of guys, I believe, that have traits that are very dissimilar from each other. And teams are going to target the dudes that they actually cannot imagine not only not playing for them, but playing for their rival. They just don't want to do that. So yeah. That's why I think Quinyon Mitchell is that one dude out of all of the corners. I said if he sits there at 17 for Jacksonville, they ought to run up there. They shouldn't even waste any time. I'd do it in 1 minute.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, you know, one byproduct for teams who don't need a quarterback, they're having the potential of drafting a guy who may have been in the top 10 if it wasn't so quarterback heavy and top 3 wide receiver heavy this year. That's 7 picks in the top 8 that could be those premium positions that other teams may not need. So it'll just be fascinating to see what will fall. 17 is such a fascinating position because it's like so much, like trade back possible, trade up possible. You were trying to trade back with me in our mock draft. We were texting. You were trying to trade back with me. And then, you know, I got a sweetheart offer, so I couldn't pass it up. But, you know, anything from 15 to 32 tonight is a crapshoot. We have no idea what's going to happen. You've got the guys. There's a bunch of offensive linemen that can go right after the top 10. They could fall into the 20s. We don't know where Graham Barton's going to go. We don't know where the corner's going to go. The wide receivers, like, this is the last one. So corner, wide receiver. So say somehow Rome Odunze's there and gets past New York, and he's there at 8. I feel like there would be a cavalcade of teams that would want to trade up to 8 and give somewhat of a ransom for Atlanta. But then you have teams like Kansas City. Maybe they want to give up a fourth and move into the mid-20s and draft a wide receiver. Maybe, Carolina wants to package those 2 seconds they have in the top, between 30 and 40 and move up and draft a wide receiver. Xavier Legette, I know, has been a guy that they've loved. Like, I think wide receivers on the back end of the first is going to be fascinating also. And again, you're a very smart person. You've been around a long time with this. Is this the most, I don't know what the hell's going to happen draft we've seen in some time? Or is that just what the mocks want us to believe?
I think it is. I think all of them are like that. But this one is particularly that way because there's a lot of movement on the coaching front this year. A lot of unknowns when it comes to these new coaches. And then a lot of guys that got there's a lot of new GMs, man, and you don't really know their tendencies, because you can think that they're going to do whatever was being done at their last stop, but you can't always think that just because somebody was in this organization that's how they're going to do business. So, and the other element that's in this is I always say coaches that were big time recruiters, when they leave college and come to the NFL that first year, they have an advantage because they know the kids. And there's a deeper, I even asked Trent Baalke about that. And he said, yeah, of course, and a lot of the dudes, not just Jim Harbaugh, but a lot of the personnel guys, from college are coming back to the NFL. They are in college right now. They're really doing their personnel rooms just like the NFL. And there's a lot of interchangeable parts between those two. So I think you could see the Chargers really, really make some noise the way Urban Meyer did here his first year in 2021, which is the best Jaguars draft they've had in a long, long time. They got Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, and Andre Sisco and Tyson Campbell. Haven't had that since he left, but we'll see if that makes a little bit of a difference with so many guys knowing so much about the college guys this year.
Alex Clancy, Tony Wiggins, Locked On NFL Thursday. Bold predictions from Wig and myself next after Tony tells you about our friends at LinkedIn.
LinkedIn Talent Solutions. That's right, man. I have opened several businesses in the past, 3, in fact, and each and every time I used LinkedIn to help me find the right candidates. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. This is just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who are actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role if something comes along. LinkedIn knows the small business is wearing so many hats and might not have time for resourcing and doing the hiring, and that's why they are there. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
One more segment, man. I'm
Yes,
ready.
sir.
I'm
Yes, sir.
juiced. I mean, dude, here's the thing. Just a little insight into the world of Locked On podcast hosts. We love our job every day. First of all, everydayers, thank you for everything that you do for us. Make our job lovely. Our Twitter DMs are ablaze. Our teams are ablaze. We have so much fun doing this. And we also deserve the payoff. Just like everybody else. I'm ready. The season ended a long time ago for the Arizona Cardinals. Pretty much ended in week 2 of last season. I'm ready to see what the Cardinals do. I'm ready to see what the Jacksonville Jaguars do for you. Ready to see where the quarterbacks go, where the trade ups, where the trade backs are, everything in between. And Tony, there's always a couple surprises.
Mm-hmm.
And you told me before we recorded that you've got something under your belt that you'd like to proclaim, and we'll put it in the cliched bold predictions segment. Go ahead. The floor is yours. I'll give mine next.
At some point in the mid-20s, you're going to look up and Jordan Morgan's name ain't going to be there no more. He's going way higher than a lot of people think. And the reason why is because I was told a couple of months ago, and when I started naming, I was talking to the actual executive, and he's a friend of mine too, but I started naming offensive linemen, and I was just sitting there thinking like, He knew that I was talking about where the Jaguars were, and there was 17. And this is before free agency, when I just thought they were just going to go full bore offensive line. I start naming all of these people, and he says he ain't going to be there. He ain't going to be there. And I'm like, at 17? So I've named like 6 offensive tackles. He said he ain't going to be there. And I'm like, that's 6, dude. You know all the quarterbacks. And I'm telling you, there's going to be a run on offensive line. All of a sudden, I look up today, and I see people reporting just what I reported 2 months ago, that there's going to be, and I put it in our DM too. I said, somebody told me there's going to be a run on offensive linemen. So now I'm starting to believe it, because I'm thinking that these folks are paying all these quarterbacks so much money, they're really making a premium to protect people. And Jordan Morgan, for me, there's a lot of teams that run the type of offensive line play, Kansas City, San Francisco, that need left tackles or that need some tackles. And even though San Fran has Trent, he's getting older. Jordan Morgan, there's going to be such a good run early that you're going to look up, and it's going to be him, it's going to be Patrick Paul, and there's going to be some other people, and teams are going to get desperate, and they're going to try to trade in from day 2, and they're going to try to come up, or some teams in the back of day 1 are going to try to come up. And I'm telling you, 22, 23, 24, Jordan Morgan ain't going to be there. He's going to be gone.
So when's the second defensive player going to go? Like Dallas Turner and Quinyon Mitchell, and that's it? And then it's going to be
I think Jared Verse will be out. I think Verse will be gone, and maybe another corner. But what's going to happen is the boards that we've seen and the things that we've seen, we're going to see that it's all been a facade. I really do believe that everyone is valuing off. They got to keep the quarterbacks upright, and they got to keep them healthy. They're paying them too much money to see them hit the ground, man, and there's no longer a way more of a premium for a left tackle than a right tackle. They're all the same, because the defense is putting athletes on both sides of the line of scrimmage. So I really do believe that this is the one. Everybody's talking about the quarterbacks and the wideouts. I think you might see seven offensive tackle types go in the first round.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, every time. One of my favorite things to say about, with the Cardinals is, if you don't protect Kyler Murray, none of this is going to work.
Mm-mm.
You can never have too much depth on the offensive line, especially with guys who are popping. You would most likely be top 10 picks, the majority of them, if we didn't have this run on quarterbacks and wide receivers. For me, and this isn't bold, but I think that there's no way in the world, aside from if the Cardinals trade back, that the Chargers draft at 5. I don't see it. Jim Harbaugh knows he's got an expensive roster. They had to move off their 2 top receivers. They kept all the defensive players with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. They got to get younger. So I don't think there's anybody that's an absolute needle mover. Maybe Joe Alt. They've got Rashawn Slater there. So they can move back. Say they take Minnesota 11-23, and maybe they don't have their second next year. Maybe it's a player. Maybe it's not a first next year. I think even 11-23 and a third rounder this year would be enough to move back from 5. So you can take a corner, you can take a pass rusher, an offensive lineman, and you can move the hell on and start to get younger. And I think
they can move later, though. And what I mean by that is, because they have a quarterback and because they do have infrastructure on the team, they do have a lot of veterans. You can't say them in particular picking at 5 is like, I've seen a lot of people say, well, the team's not structured to be able to support a player like that. Mm-hmm. Well, you're not talking about a quarterback. I think Harbaugh needs to get the best damn player he can get to go along with his quarterback. And then in round 2, because of his ability and the fact that he knows all of these recruits, take that second round pick and bail back. Do what Baltimore does. Keep your pick in the first round, high in the first round. If it's just a player that's going to be, nobody going to care about team building if the dude catches 17 touchdowns a year. They're just not. So I think you keep it, and I think later on you do what Baltimore does. You take that second round pick and move back, and you turn it into a bunch of 3rd, 4th, and 5th round picks, and then you go shopping and get all of those bargain dudes that you know so well, and that's what I think they're going to do.
You think Xavier Legette goes in the first round?
If he does, it'll be at the very back of the first round.
Yeah, because if that's the case, and we got to get out of here before Ross Jackson gets mad at us. But you got to look at Rome Odunze, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell. That's 5. You know, like
Brian
how
Thomas
many?
Jr.
Sorry. Oh,
Brian
Brian Thomas
Thomas.
Jr. That's 6. Like, I mean, that's a quarter of the picks, almost a quarter of the picks. What's the fifth of the picks? It's like, can there be more in there? Can there be it's just? I just want it to be now, and I'm ready.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony, this has been fun, man.
Always,
you can
man.
check out,
Always fun.
for sure, man. And you can check out Tyler Rowland and David Harrison tomorrow. Tyler will be back with me next Thursday. Alex Clancy, Tony Wiggins. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being everydayers. Enjoy the draft.